probably will. My name is Morgan Dain, and I'm the Assistant Director for Law Career Development at the Law Career Services Office. And my co-presenter today is Vicki Huebner. She's our Assistant Dean for Law Career Services. And this presentation is to basically give you an overview of not only our services and a timeline that will be very helpful to you, but also we want to talk about some programs like our SCU Law Jobs program, or you might hear it referred to as Simplicity, to get you familiar with it. And also we're doing something brand new for you guys this year that we haven't done before, and that is we're giving you access to SCU Law Jobs on October 1st instead of November 1st. Now, we'll talk more about that later, and it is modified, meaning we will not have access to some of the features, including jobs, and we'll talk about why that is, but you'll have access to other things like the professional network and the employer database. So we're going to talk about that as well, and how you get active and started. So before we get into the discussion, we just want to give you an overview of what our staff consists of, for those of you who may not be aware. So again, this is Vicki Huebner. She's the Assistant Dean. My name is Morgan Dain, Assistant Director for Law Career Development. I work primarily with first and second years with a small group of also 3Ls and grads and some others that come my way. Then we have Jennifer Babcock is the Assistant Director for Law Graduate Employment. She's actually transitioning out. So in her place will be Andrea Shaheen, who's the Assistant Director for Graduate Employment. Previously, they split this position. Now, Jennifer is transitioning out, and Andrea will be here in a full-time capacity. So that is the breakdown of the Assistant Directors and Advisors in the office, including Vicki. And then we have Christina Johnson, who is our Program Coordinator or Office Manager. Basically, Christina handles most of the on-campus interviews and scheduling, both on the employer side and the student side, so you will probably get to know her very well, even if you don't partake in the formal fall recruitment process, OCI, that's going on now. We have on-campus interviews throughout the year, and it encompasses a wide variety of employers, not just large firms, so you'll probably get to know her at some point. And then, in addition to that, we have several little subdivisions of our office. Public Interest Law Career Services, or PILCS as you may have heard it, is made up of 2 law students. We have Yan Lee, who is a 3L this year. She was also part of the PILCS team last year. And we have Sienna Couts, who is a second-year law student. So together they make up Public Interest Law Career Services. And so if you're interested in things like the pro bono placement program or pro bono recognition program, or anything that has a public interest or public sector feel to it, or employer practice area specific, you would want to contact them to get information. They also put on the Public Interest Career Fair, which is in October, and we'll talk more about that later. So it's really helpful to get to know them early on. And then we have some other law student teams. Cassandra is one of those people. She's in another slide. We have our marketing and employer relationship team. It's made up solely of law students who are very helpful to our office. They basically do employer outreach. They put together things like employer visits. They put together a lot of our events as far as employers that are attending. A lot of outreach is done, so we rely on them heavily. And it works for them too, because they get to meet those legal employers, they get to network it within the legal community, and they get to do it under the umbrella of working for our office. So it's very effective, and it's a win-win. And then we have our communications team that's made up of Gregory Williams, who is a recent graduate, who's going to be here for the next several months. Typically that role is held by a law student. We have Cassandra E., who's here in the crowd today. And then we have a couple of other staff members who basically handle all of our online communication. So everything you see from today, the video of this program, all of our LinkedIn announcements and communication, our Facebook, Twitter, all of that is done through our communications team. So they are an integral part of our office. And then also all of the blog communication, when you see or read recaps of programs, that's all done through our communications team. So they are incredibly valuable.
And by the way, so this whole, we'll talk about November 1st, and you might have heard about November 1st when you were during orientation with your peer advisors that were taking on the tours, and they were saying, November 1st, you can't have individual appointments until then with the career services staff. That applies to us as career services permanent staff members, but it does not apply to your fellow students who are your peers and asking them for advice. And you've got an awful lot of your peers who are upperclassmen that are working in our office that they're like you, they're law students. They just happen to also be spending somewhere between 10 to 15 hours a week while they're attending law school, working in LCS, which means that they have 10 to 15 hours a week where they're thinking about researching employers, how to go about doing that. They're there for you to also leverage off of. So one of the things you probably also heard during orientation was that your network and your relationships begin here in the law school, they begin with your classmates. Well, these people are they're in your network. They are part of the people who are going to school with you. So it's another tool that you have right now that you can leverage off of to be able to have, make appointments to meet with these people, see them in the hall, go see if you all want to go buy some coffee, see if they're going to be a bar review. And if they wouldn't spend just a few minutes talking to you about some of their ideas about what they've learned about the job search process along the way. Or they've all done things besides just working career services, the internships that they've had as well out of the legal community.
That actually brings up a good point because especially with our research team, they speak to 30, 40, 50 employers a day sometimes when they're doing calls. What better person to ask about, hey, how do I approach an employer? Or what's the best way to start a conversation with an employer than one of the members of our team who do that every day. So it's a great idea. Okay, so what does LCS do for me? What do we do for you guys? In addition to advising, which we'll talk about in a moment, we also provide information. We act as a mentor, guide. We connect you to mentors and guides and resources within the legal community and beyond. We also do things like the obvious, reviewing resume, cover letter, all that. We talk about interview skills. We talk about networking and how to effectively do that. And not just picking up the phone and not just emailing, but just what we were talking about before, how to have that effective conversation, how to have an effective interview, or perhaps network at one of the events we're going to talk about. So we provide a lot of services outside of just that straightforward resume review or that one-on-one strategic advising. Okay, and so this slide is just sort of a recap of that. In addition to our inner office services that we provide, you will see that we put on a lot of events and programs. So for example, this one today is a lunch hour program or part of our lunch hour series. And we typically have about 1 to 2 programs per week. It averages out, but about 1 to 2 would be about a safe estimate. And then we also co-sponsor with some student organizations. So every week you'll have something that's either career focused or practice area specific or maybe fundamental specific, meaning that resume, cover letter, interviewing skills, networking skills that are so essential. We usually provide some sort of programming on any of those areas throughout the week. And then we have some major and minor events that we're going to talk about further into the program as well. Anything you want to add to that? We can talk about OCIs or on-campus interviews if you would like. We're doing that right now. It's a little bit early for you guys. We will have programs that will be geared toward OCI for the upcoming fall in the spring semester. So again, if you have questions and you want to talk one-on-one before our advising appointments in November, we'll be happy to do that. Or if you just have some general questions about the process, again, we'll be able to answer those one-on-one. Okay, so now we want to talk about your job search now, because we get this question a lot, especially with entering students in first years. Okay, well, I understand we can't have a formal advising appointment until November, so what does that mean? Well, first of all, why is that? And what does that mean for me in the way of job search? And what should I be doing now? And to help answer that question, we put together this booklet. Actually, one of our former communications manager put it together, which is a passport to success. And if you open it, it basically gives you a month-by-month chart of what you should be doing, say in August, September, October, leading up to spring. It has everything from links to resource guides. It has programs. It has information about things like our career pathway guides, which again we'll talk about. So it's this nice sort of all-inclusive guide, if you will, to get you going on the right track. So that when you meet with us in beginning November and throughout, you'll have some sort of idea or outline that we can refer back to and make that appointment more effective and more efficient.
I want to say one other thing about the timing, because I think what can really happen is that you come in as a first year, and I think all of you have a distinct advantage by being here today. Because you come in as a first year, and I know I certainly did back when I was a first year, of thinking 3 years is a long time from now, and I've got a lot of time to look for a job. And what you don't realize is that you don't, really. And when you look at the passport, there's two deadlines that you'll hear about a lot as a first year. The first one is this November 1st deadline, associated with a national rule that says no individual career counseling prior to November 1st. And another date that gets thrown out a lot for first years is December 1st, that now member employers, meaning these are employers who are members of the Association for Legal Career Professionals, will not accept 1L resumes prior to December 1st. And as a 1L, I think it's really easy to say, well, that means I don't have to do anything until the spring semester. If you open this, you start realizing, holy cow, first off, there's a couple exceptions, not a lot, but there are a few exceptions to the December 1st cutoff. They are government employers which have an extensive background check, security background check, like the FBI and the CIA. So first off, you find who those exceptions are because it gives you in here the deadlines to apply for them. Second off, if you turn to even the December page, you start seeing all these people that you have to apply to in December. So start thinking now about, you're already in your 3rd week of school, and you might be feeling a little pressed by all of the work associated with going to law school and the pace of class and the amount of time that it takes to do your reading. Now fast forward we're getting into November, and all of a sudden we're going to get our LARA final. You're going to want to be finalizing your outlines because you're going to be starting your finals in December. If you would like to apply for any of these people, how are you going to be managing your time? And how are you going to be doing it effectively so that you have an application that is ready to go at a time that's going to be very busy for you? Being able to manage your time effectively is a key skill in the legal profession and as an attorney, because life it doesn't get less busy when you're an attorney. If anything, it tends to accelerate in terms of the pace. So this can help you so that you can be managing your time now to be thinking about, hey, even as busy as it is now, it's still not as busy as it's going to be when I hit those dates and I start getting into November. And so what can I do now to start looking at revising my resume and pulling that up so that when I hit the career counselors in November 1st, I have a revised resume that I'm working off of as my platform rather than the one that I gave to the admissions office. That all I did was add on Santa Clara somewhere on it. Because that's not going to be as effective for you. So, and you'll see a whole bunch of January applications and stuff that really you should be doing over the break in December as well. So this might help you to avoid, like I said, a lot of unnecessary stress.
Yeah. And a good point to bring up is that even though our advising begins November 1st, there are over 300 of you and there are 3 of us. So getting in that first few weeks of November or before the holiday break can sometimes be very difficult. And if you're not able to do that, and you have to make your appointment when you come back or after January, you will be under some time constraints if you're thinking about the federal government, if you're thinking about some competitive programs, as Vicki mentioned, and also you're thinking about large firm or some that would have that November, December, early January, some judicial externships, some early January timeframes. So the more you're prepared ahead of time and the more you are ready to just sort of get down to business, when you come to see us, the less panicked you'll be. And if you can't make that appointment until, say, maybe that second week of January, but you know you have a deadline a week later that you have to address, we'll be more prepared to deal with that and help you. So being aware of these timelines and also what you can be doing ahead of time is actually really key to your overall success. And then just things that you may not think about, like registering as a law student at the Bar Association and becoming active or a member of some of the practice area specific groups. That is a fantastic way to meet people in the legal community and start networking now, sort of planting these seeds, if you will, in the areas that you think you might be interested in, so that when you go have those meetings or you send out your resume in November and December and January for an externship or an internship or whatever that may be, you already have these connections established, and you're sending more of what we would consider a warm send as opposed to just blasting off your resume and seeing what kind of hits you get. So there actually are effective strategies that are a little bit more successful than just that single blast, and being proactive about that now and over the next couple of months makes a huge difference.
Yes.
On here there's some links. I tried putting it in my web browser, and I'm not sure, is there another way to access these links? It doesn't come
They're
up.
all on our website.
Okay.
They're all on our website, and so do you want to just go onto our website now? Yeah. So
I don't know if the Bar Association link is. I think it might be under Job Search Resources or Job Board Resources.
anyway, on our website, there's this link to current students. If you click on this, here's where you'll find like the career pathway guides. Here's where you'll find the self-assessment that's talked about in September. It's also like on the handouts. I know it's a little bit of a generic term, handouts. What in the heck is that? This is where you'll find the resume, how to build your resume handout. It's where you'll find the cover letter and thank you note handout. It's where you'll find this 1L job search timelines and tips. So, you know, so that might help with some of these little bit.ly links.
And that is a nice transition to our next couple of topics, self-assessment and also the career pathway guides. So for self-assessment, what we mean by that is it's time for you to start figuring out what makes you thrive, what areas you might be interested in or not, your background and how you can utilize that background both from an academic, professional, leadership, life experience way, and implement those experiences and skills into the workplace. And sometimes it's helpful to use indicators to help sort of guide you through that process. And a couple of things that we offer at the Law Career Services Office is an MBTI or Myers-Briggs type indicator assessment, which is free for you to take if you do it through our office. If you do it otherwise, it's a $50 fee, so we highly recommend that you do it for free through us. And what's nice about that is once you do the assessment, we have a follow-up appointment and we talk about the results. And we talk about just that, what environments, what characteristics and personality types you may have that may be helpful in a certain practice area or a certain particular legal market or non-legal market. Areas that you may thrive in or not thrive in, and discussing both aspects of that. So let's say, for example, you know you want to be a litigator, but you have some potential weaknesses or challenges that are blocking you or preventing you from excelling in that area. We could talk about strategies and techniques that will help you progress in those areas. And then we can also talk about your strengths and how to really maximize those and be an effective communicator and really market those abilities. And then in addition to the Myers-Briggs, we also have an internal Law Career Services self-assessment that's a little bit more broad-based, but is also equally as helpful. And what I actually like about it is on the very last page of it, there's a fundamentals skills listing, and you basically list out all your fundamental skills that you think you have, and we apply those directly, again, to where your talents might lie and where those might be effective in particular areas of the legal community, practice areas, non-legal, etc. So those are really helpful. And what's nice about doing those before we have that advising meeting, or maybe in a follow-up advising meeting, is that it better targets our conversation and it helps us develop strategies that are very important to your overall success for your first year, second year, third year, and beyond. So we highly recommend you take advantage of that. And then also, in order to help you figure out what practice areas you might be interested in, if you haven't given it much thought or you're not really clear about what some practice areas mean, is to go to our career pathway guides, which is on our website. These are fantastic documents that are fluid in nature, and they basically are examples and descriptions of some practice areas that are out there. And not only does it give descriptions of practice areas, but it gives you links to resources that will help you better understand these areas, in which different groups these areas exist. For example, corporate law, or let's just take international law, which is this huge umbrella. People always say, I want to do international law. The first thing I say to them is, well, what do you mean by that? And that could be humanitarian, it could be corporate, it could be practicing international law domestically, or eventually transitioning to an international market. It can mean many things. So going on to these career pathway guides helps you establish a baseline and an overall foundation and understanding of these practice groups. And then in addition to that, we'll provide you with resources and people to talk to, like professors, who can also give you a better understanding and who are highly connected in those particular areas. So it's a really helpful resource. Do you want to add?
I just want to add one thing, which is, again, this was my own experience as a student. It was like self-assessment, self-assessment, whatever. Why would I do that? Just give me a job. And you know, I've come to realize a couple things. One is with the turn of the economy and the recession and the new normal of law firms and private practice, that really the demands on you as an applicant are much higher than they ever were. You're expected to perform at a much higher professional level in order to get those jobs, and it doesn't matter whether you're talking about some of the largest law firms in the United States that have global offices, or whether you're talking about a mid-sized firm, or you know, a smallish mid-sized firm that's here in San Jose or Palo Alto. It's just the reality that's out there. And one of the skills that you need to demonstrate as an applicant is a skill that you're going to have to demonstrate and use when you're in practice, and it's an ability to market your practice and market yourself as a revenue-generating person within that practice. And you need to start it now with the way that you're crafting your resumes and crafting your cover letters. You are going to be much more successful at being able to effectively market yourself, basically explaining how you are a value add to the organization. And at this moment, don't panic if you're like, I have no legal experience. You have to understand what those transferable skills are. And doing it in a way that parallels the way that you're marketing your practice to be a successful applicant. You really need to find that nexus between what the employer does and what it is you want to do, and explain why you would be a value add to that organization, where the connection is between the two of you. It's so much easier to do if you understand a little bit about that practice, understand why you are passionate, motivated to be in that practice area, and what life experiences you've had up to this point where you have transferable skills. So this is one of the reasons why we talk about self-assessment and how it's a foundational starting place for you in your job search process.
Yeah, and when we're meeting with students, there are three things that I always bring up when we're talking about the job search process or the interview process. And I always look at the student and I say, the employer's thinking three things when they're looking at you, or when they're looking at your materials. They're thinking, what's my investment in you? Why should I hire you? What are you bringing to the table? And how are you going to complement my team, or add value, as Vicki said, to this team, this organization, this office, this firm, whatever. So if you think about those three things when you're drafting your resume, when you're writing that cover letter, when you're in that interview, that will make a significant impact on what you're demonstrating, but also what's coming out of your mouth and how you're connecting with that employer. It's really important. Okay, so now in the guide, we say that August and September are sort of your gathering months. You should be gathering information, doing that research, starting to think about what it is that you want to do and why you're here. And then October is more of the execution month, if you will. So October, November, and December, the execution months. And what we mean by that is it's time to start utilizing the information that you gathered and research that you've done, and start to get those materials tight. After November, get some materials out. Certainly meet with us before you do so that it's really effective. And then, if we bring up the side, start attending some programs and meet people in the legal community. And attending some of the programs that we have in October is a great first step in doing this. It sort of takes the edge off because the environment is presented for you. And a few of those that we have, the next slide that shows the those we have are coming up October 3rd. We have a speed networking event. It's one of our most popular events, and actually we've had a few people that were hired from speed networking. Great way to meet people in the legal community, similar to speed dating. In fact, it's very similar in its awkwardness, in its time frame, and trying to develop a connection. So that's a really great event, and we hold that twice a year.
No, once.
Or I guess
Once now.
sorry. We'll have to edit that out. Okay, and then the public interest career fair for those of you that are interested in public interest, public sector, and also connecting with our PILCS coordinators. Public interest career fair is a great way to meet some people in the public interest, public sector community that may not necessarily post jobs on SCU Law Jobs or in other ways. They may hire through their connections and referrals and people that, for example, PILCS coordinators who have strong relationships with some of these students might recommend, or through the Pro Bono project. So it's a great way to meet people and start establishing that connection. And then this is a new program, Gateway to Success Week, which is in October. Vicki and I will be doing a series of presentations, and we'll also be asking some people in the legal community to come as well. And we're going to talk about those fundamentals, so getting your resume in order, getting that cover letter together, talking about interview skills and networking skills, sort of preparing you for the events, and then also preparing you for that November 1 push to not only meet with us, but also get out there in the legal community and get your materials out. So we're going to help you and prepare you ahead of time so that when you get to those November, December months, you hopefully will feel prepared and more confident in this next stage. And then we have another couple of events. Diversity Gala is huge. It's one of our biggest events of the year. And what I think we love about it is that it encompasses people from all walks of the legal community and beyond. Judges, recruiters, small, mid-sized, large firm, public interest, public sector, alums from everywhere. So it is a great opportunity to meet with just about every person in every particular legal community or practice group that you could think of in an environment that encourages and supports the casual conversation. So take advantage of that. We highly recommend it. It's a beautiful program, and it's a great way to meet people. Okay, so now should we get into social media? Okay, so now we've talked about some programs that are out there. We've talked about some fundamental skills, what our office provides. Now we want to talk about tapping into some of the resources that we have for you. And our social media outlets, we rely on very heavily. So what that means for you is checking things like our homepage on, if not a daily basis, several times a week
Or
basis.
just like us
Yeah.
on like Facebook.
Mm-hmm. And I always tell students, you don't necessarily have to be proactive in checking your Facebook page every day or whatever. But what you should be doing is at least be checking this homepage because you can see the dailies, you can see the feeds. And what's really nice about this is at a glance, you can see our Facebook feed, you can see our Twitter feed, you can see what's happening on the blog, you can see what's happening on our LCS calendar, and we have programming and events.
You can see that Nick here wants to hire an attorney.
Yeah. And that brings up a good point that sometimes not all positions that you'll see on the Facebook and the Twitter feed make it to SCU Law Jobs, and vice versa. Sometimes our communications and research teams go out there and they troll for these positions, and they'll put them on these sites that may not necessarily make it to SCU Law Jobs. So utilizing Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and SCU Law Jobs is a really great way to get that full circle exposure among other sites that we can talk about at a later time.
On the community calendar, one thing that our communications team does is try to make it easier for you to be able to not only know what's happening with our office, but also find ways for you to introduce yourself to the legal community. So they put in networking events that they think are fun networking events to go to, where you can meet, where you can go to a bar association event and you can meet people who are maybe the kinds of people that you want to be in the room with. And so, if you like sports, well, then go to the NCAA March Madness with the barristers if you were back here in, the spring. Because wouldn't that be a lot of fun to go watch basketball and be with a bunch of young attorneys? So, they've done that. Or if you like us on Facebook and you know that, you look at it, then you know that, when you are able to do The one-on-ones that, well, Andrea was down, she was down in the student lounge, you know, yesterday at noon doing drop-in advising. Because getting that interview time, that one-on-one career counseling time, remember, there's a lot more of you than there are of us. Maybe a little tough, but we do hold drop-in hours. All of us hold drop-in hours during the week, and so, you know, it's like, oh, there's that drop-in hour, and you can get that. Or you can find out that Monica Toole is looking for someone for 5 to 10 hours a week to help in her office. So
another great thing about the mixers and, for example, the Bar Association memberships where they'll have mixers or these get-togethers is that you're connecting with people. And we're going to talk about this more this year, next year, and beyond. But the way that you ultimately get that job is you're making some sort of connection. So it's not just about the skill set. It's not just about the academic and the practical work. It's about also the connection, the interpersonal. And when you meet with these attorneys at things like the mixers and these different meetings and such, you are hopefully presenting an opportunity that you're able to connect with them, have a conversation, get to know each other a little bit. And that makes a huge difference when they're thinking about who they want to sit next to for 10, 15, 20 hours plus. Who's going to incorporate well into the firm culture and environment, or the agency environment, or whatever the case may be. So don't think of these mixers and these opportunities, these events and these galas as just a way to get a business card. Think about them as relationship building and connecting with people on a more interpersonal level. So they'll think about, oh yeah, I met that guy at the diversity gala and we had this great conversation about, I don't know, French cuisine, and I love that. And, you know, let's get him on the horn. And you might laugh, but that kind of stuff happens all the time. Interviews can be 20 minutes about tennis and 5 minutes about your practical work. So don't underestimate that.
the other thing that you need to know is that the practice of law, especially again when you're talking the private side where you're building a business, is a relationship, personal relationship business. And you need to demonstrate that skill. And you're not going to be able to just write on your resume, I like people and people like me. It's like that may or may not be true, but you can't just write it on your resume. You need to actually demonstrate this skill, and you need to start looking the part, right? Kind of like when you show up for an interview, you look the part by wearing the appropriate clothing. You look the part by the way that you act now, and if the more you're acting like an attorney, attorneys are expected to not just sit in their office and read and read and read and research and then talk to their clients. They're expected to be also out building their business and being active with bar associations. The more you look like that, the more it's going to help you in terms of getting your job, because you're looking like them, you're thinking like them, you're talking like them, and that's the kind of person that someone is going to want to hire.
And it's a comfort factor as well. The more you put yourself in these positions, it's the art of the conversation. You know, the primary skill of an interview is the art of the conversation. The more you feel confident and the more you feel comfortable in speaking with these people and being put in those environments, the more effective your conversation is going to be, the more confident you are going to appear, and the more communication that you give out in a clear and concise and articulate way, the better you're going to connect with these people.
Let's also show them the LinkedIn. So we have our own LinkedIn group. Oh, and let me sign in as me for the LinkedIn. So,
while Vicki's doing that, do any of you have any questions about anything that we've talked about so far?
So I know the first time you meet with you is like November 1st, but when's the first time that you can actually make appointments or after that date?
Okay.
As soon as we get our career counseling schedules up for that day or after.
We all set our schedules at different time frames. Some are more organized and ahead of the game than others. I tend to, you will notice, I will tend to post the following month on the last week or the last couple of days of each month for the following month. So for you, say you are, for November I'll do it a little bit earlier, but for November appointments, you will probably start to be able to make those towards the end of October, mid to end October. And then after that, it's really whenever you have the availability, and we have the availability. So it's beginning November 1st, but thereafter you can make appointments at any time, as many times as you like. So let's just say that you're not able to get into that third week in November by the time you get around to making the appointment and are able to get a slot. We will have that 1L initial advising appointment that first time we meet. And then we'll have, hopefully, follow-up appointments to talk about strategy and development after that. So your first initial appointment you will probably be able to make in October for November. And then really it depends on who you're targeting and when each particular advisor sets their schedules.
So I've popped up, go ahead, ask your question.
Quick question. You know how we have to go, do we go to your office to take the Myers-Briggs?
No.
Oh.
You can email us at our email address.
Okay.
Because one of our front desk staff will forward the email to either me or Morgan. But you can email us at LCS, I'm sorry, it's messy handwriting, at SCU.edu. I was never known for my penmanship, and it got worse as, the computer age has come around. But just email that and tell them that you want to take the MBTI.
Okay.
We're going to be doing a group MBTI review on September 19th, so if you take it now and you come to that, that would be your interpretive session where we'll talk about the MBTI and what it means for you. And then if you still have follow-up questions, we can see you on or after November 1st about that.
Yeah, and then we can get even more specific, and we can talk more about career-specific questions, concerns, environments as it relates to your assessment and what the MBTI indicated for you. So we can get a little bit more specific in those one-on-ones.
So I brought up the LinkedIn group for careers for Santa Clara University Law Career Services. If you have a LinkedIn profile, you can join this now. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, on the flash drives, we have an article about how to create your profile. If you have one and you're like, I'm not sure that that's what exactly, I don't know, I just threw something together. You may want to look at the article first to see whether or not you're actually effectively marketing yourself, because this is the way that you're online marketing yourself to other professionals. So the members of this group are both students and alumni. If you click on the members tab, you can see that we have 667 members. And you can do a keyword search for the members. So maybe you want to just find out who's had a judicial internship. You could do that, and you might get students that pop up. You might have alumni that pop up. We have 2 subgroups that consist of legal recruiters. So maybe you want to know, it's got 22 members in it. Maybe you want to contact a legal recruiter directly to find out, maybe it's nearing next semester and you have OCI related questions. Maybe you want to contact a legal recruiter about that. We also have a mentor directory, which by the way was only created in July, and since July we now have 179 members of that. So you can scroll through this, and I use this all the time in my career counseling when someone's sitting next to me and they're like, yeah, who can I talk to? I'm interested in doing intellectual property. So, I'll just pop in a term like patent, and all of a sudden I'll look and I'll be like, oh, yeah. As you can see, I know these people because they're all my first level contacts. And I'll be like, oh, yeah, Joe, he's such a great guy. And Shane loves talking to students. These people all signed up for a mentor directory voluntarily. They were not mandated to do this. These are people that want to talk to students, and again, this is something that you can do today. There's no reason why you need to wait until November 1st for a career counseling appointment with any of us to go in and be, looking in here and saying, wow, I think I really want to talk to Phil Lee, who's currently a judicial law clerk at the United States Court for the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit. The highest court in the land if you're interested in intellectual property work. She's a really nice guy. So, like I said, that's available to you now.
Another great way to use the mentor directory, this is something that I just did with a student and a grad, is that if you're planning to practice outside of the state, or let's say, for example, your home base is Seattle and you want to do an internship or an externship in Seattle over your first summer, great way to find out where the alums are, start with the mentor directory. I pulled up 4 people in New York just the other day that I was able to connect this grad to who were doing some really interesting work. So as the mentor directory grows, the connection base will grow, and it won't just be, it'll be primarily in the Silicon Valley, San Francisco area, maybe LA or Southern California area, but you're going to see more alums across nationally and maybe even internationally. So that's something to think about now, especially if you're planning to do an externship that may not be in this particular area. Start building those relationships and those connections over your breaks, through the mentor directory and some other areas, so that when you go to apply to those different opportunities, you already have those connections and those conversations started.
In fact, I did that yesterday with a student who's interested in working in China. I popped in the term China, and we found some alums who are practicing in China, and she was like, well, how do I connect with them? I was like, Google Voice or Skype would be like the cheapest way to do it, I'm sure. We also have a YouTube channel, and I just want to show that to you. So there's all sorts of videos you can get if you just put in the search terms anything you want, but just 1L to start with. You'll get a number of videos that pop up. Some of these people are now alumni, but they're talking about them as students, their job search advice to you about how to look for a job as a 1L. Or if you're like, I just don't know how to start my job, you can look at me in all of my glory, talking about how do you start your job search, or how do I, set up my priorities. Well, there's Morgan.
Isn't that fantastic? Yeah.
Yeah, telling you how to do that. So you can pop in the term resumes, researching employers, cover letters. You can use all sorts of terms.
Yeah, and a lot of practice area specific programming is on there. Although we always highly recommend that you come to our programs. We encourage you to look at the YouTube videos if either you can't make it or you want a refresher, or perhaps an attorney or a recruiter or whoever it is we have coming in to talks about a lot of material, and you just want to get some specifics on certain parts of the conversation. The YouTube channel and the YouTube programs are really effective in doing that. And for fundamentals as well, so if you want a refresher on those resumes, networking, interview skills, going back to those videos can be really helpful.
Let me just really quickly talk about the blog, and then you can talk about simplicity. So we also have a blog, and I would suggest subscribing to it, because not only do you have announcements that pop up, like we're having a meeting today, but also people like Cassandra. We have themes for every month for the blog. We work on articles that are job search related. In July, the theme was all about judicial clerkships. So Cassandra drafted some articles about how to find judicial clerkships, and she also interviewed alums who are currently serving as clerks, and she typed up articles with their advice about that. We also have on the flash drives, we talked to 2011 graduates who were in large law firms with the thought that these flash drives were handed out in preparation for OCIs with larger law firms, about how they found those jobs with the large law firms and what their best advice was for people preparing for interviews with those. So the blog will also give you that information.
Yeah, it's really helpful. And what's neat is each one of them talks about different areas or different aspects of, you can use it under the guise of the OCI process, but really it's the interviewing process. And different things that were either difficult or challenging to them under the same sort of pre-screen environment. So it's really helpful to get those different perspectives. Okay, so we're going to talk very quickly about simplicity. So as we mentioned before, you are the first class that's going to be getting Simplicity Access or SCU Law Jobs Access before November, which is pretty exciting to us anyway, because it will hopefully eliminate a lot of frustration and questions you have leading up to that November timeframe. And what that means for you is that you will have access to our employer database. There are over 5,000 employers in there. You can do filtered searches. It's a great way to begin that research. You will have access to our professional network, which is similar to the mentor directory. It's a growing and sort of fluid program.
Well, the mentor directory has superseded
the professional network. But what's nice about the professional network is that the people that are in there have basically agreed to cross that bridge into informational interviewing, which you're going to hear from us over and over and over again, the importance of doing so. So if you reach out to one of those people, whether it's through the professional network or mentor directory or another area, having that informational interview is going to be really helpful, and Simplicity can help guide you in finding those employers to get that process started. And then in addition to that, we ask that you fill out your profile so that in November it's a lot easier, and going forward over the next couple of years, it's a lot easier for us to identify things like your practice areas of interest. If we're trying to get a hold of you for an on-campus interview, things of that nature. If your class status has changed, maybe you were a part-timer and now you're full-time, or maybe you've decided to go into the JD MBA program, which will ultimately affect your time here and the positions and the things that you do, especially for OCI purposes. It's great for us to know that. And then also you are able to RSVP to our events through Simplicity or SCU Law Jobs, which is going to be very helpful for both you and our office, because for things like speed networking and the diversity gala, if you RSVP ahead of time, we do a nice name tag for you. It helps us determine how many people are going to be at the event. We also blast out some market-specific messaging to people who have RSVP that may not have. So it's a really great way to make sure that you are being captured in that data. And so we're just going to very quickly log on if we have time. And then just very quickly, so we're going to address the jobs component. Obviously, you are not going to have access to the job postings feature until, or beginning, I should say, November 1st. And as Vicki mentioned, this is not just because we're trying to be mean. It's because
we're members of HALP.
It's the National Association of Legal Placement Legal Professionals, and also recommended by the ABA as well, that we do not give you this access until November 1st for a wide variety of reasons, one of which is that you should be focusing on your legal studies as a primary concern.
So this is the login page. I got to it through the Law Career Services homepage by just clicking on the link for SCU Law Jobs.
Okay, and now we're just going to go into a dummy account, but basically once you get in there,
oh, we're going to go back.
Yeah, I'm just going to go to the main thing. What you'll see is a modified version. So another thing that I wanted to bring up about the homepage also is that you will see announcements and different messaging if it relates to eventually jobs, but also programs and events, and it's very helpful. Okay, so okay, so again, what you're seeing is a modified version. We're having some technical difficulties right now, so the events tab is not up in this area right now, but it will be, and it'll just say events. It's pretty straightforward. So basically what we're asking for you to do is to go in and fill out more information in your profile. For many of you, some information is in there. We just would like some more specifics. You can upload your documents, so that resume, cover letter, eventually writing sample and transcripts you can house here, both for the purposes of applying through the system and also for things like on and off campus interviews where you want a safe place to house your documents, and also for resume collects. And then employers. This is where you're going to do searches for either practice area specific or maybe geographic specific employers, maybe do some practice area research and find out how many small firms in the area may be doing, have a focus on immigration, and of those firms, who are in the SCU Law Jobs database. And I'm going to compare those now to things like Martindale. I might do a CalBAR search. I might go now back into the mentor directory or some other areas so that I can get more information about a particular firm or an employer. And then this was the professional network that we were talking about earlier. And
these people are mostly all in the mentor directory. So,
and then surveys and calendar. Surveys, that would be down the road. Calendar, we don't use the calendar through Simplicity, but the events tab that's not there will actually be very important for you, and you can RSVP to events through that tab. So as far as username and passwords, those will be sent to you on October 1st. It will basically be an auto-generated email that will have both your username and an auto-generated password for you. Once you log in for the first time, you can then change that to whatever you like. Know that after we have our initial advising session, you will get access to further features in SCU Law Jobs, including the jobs and resume collect option. We will not grant you access to that until you have that advising session. So whether that's November 1st or January 15th, until you meet with us, you won't have access to that feature. Any questions at all?
So should one of us be looking into doing things like the pro bono project, or are we like not allowed to?
You know what, I know that there were some questions about that on Friday, so what I would do is refer you over to the PILP's office, and by the way, they're also having drop-in advising hours as well. You can meet with them. They have stated office hours. Like I said, they also have drop-in advising hours, so you can talk to them during any of those hours.
And I know that Sienna, who's one of the PILP's coordinators, did do some work in her first year, I believe, in the spring. And so she would be a great person to connect with and find out what the pros and cons to that were, and just ask her about how she went through that process.
For the PILPS thing, they had their sign-up sent out Monday. It's from Monday till Wednesday.
Yeah, that's for the placement program.
Okay.
So, so a couple of different things. So that's for the placement program, and that's pretty specific and fills up relatively quickly. If you're interested in the pro bono project or pro bono recognition program as a whole, that would incorporate a lot more than just the placement and the time frame. Somebody else? Did you have a question? No, we're good. Okay.
Well, I was just going to say, did the pro bono placement program with Sienna in the fall semester, and it wasn't that bad. It was just like 4 or 5 hours a week on Friday, so it was pretty easy.
It's a nice way to start building up your portfolio of experience.
Absolutely. And that's a good plug for the YouTube video, because we actually did video the pro bono recognition program and placement program information session, so you can watch that, and then you can also ask both Ann and Sienna follow-up questions.
So is it really necessary to do an externship?
Is it necessary to do one? Like in terms of graduating?
Well, no, in terms of what? I mean, does it make a big difference in terms of your employability?
Yeah, well, are you a part-time evening student? Oh, you know what, we should talk offline, because for part-time evening students, like, your situation tends to be a little bit different, and it starts getting really individual in terms of what's right for you. I would say, though, for day students, just speaking generically, that you're going to find it to be, I think, a challenge and a hurdle if you were to graduate from law school with either no or a very thin amount of experience into today's legal job market. And thin experience equates to 2 summers worth of experience, and that's it. You know, yeah, but for you specifically, let's talk about your situation.
Yeah, and you have to remember you're thinking about it from a whole perspective. So you have fall and spring semester, and ideally, or perhaps spring semester of your first year. I think doing anything in the fall semester now would be very difficult and demanding, but you know your schedule and your threshold better than anybody else. But going forward, spring and then fall and spring for second, and fall and spring for third, those are great opportunities to take advantage of getting that practical work, whether it's an externship for units, or getting a job that's paid, or doing something at the clinic. So don't think about your time frame for doing practical work as just those summers, because you have a lot of opportunity to get really great substance within the academic year as well. Okay, well, if there are no more questions, we'll be sticking around for a couple of minutes anyway to answer any one-on-one questions you have, and thank you for coming.